TikTok ruined coloring. Let me explain. So TikTok does this thing where it takes a totally normal and mundane thing and then it multiplies it by a billion. For example, coffee. It's a nice little beverage, quite nice. Boom. Mega coffee. Or your fridge.
Oh wow, nice. Look at all that space.
Boom. All of Walmart packed into your fridge. Overconsumption around every corner. At this point, it seems like a literal law to turn everything into some form of overconsumptionism. Mr. Content, what do you propose? Quite simple. You see this square? Yes, I see the square. This represents a product. I see. Let's turn it into this. That's right. And this type of behavior has struck again. And this time, it hit where it hurts. Coloring. And I'm not talking about the coloring books from your childhood, like the Shrek coloring books, the Barbie coloring books, or even the classic whatever this is. What I'm talking about is a completely different type of coloring, a new age coloring.
How I started my coloring journey. Fell in love with this book. Got cheap markers to start. Got a second book. I thought this looked good, lol. Upgraded my markers. Now we hear.
So this is how it starts. You get one of these new coloring books where the pages are just random objects and these bear people abominations that I can only assume were created in some kind of genetic lab. I mean, really, what are these things? This one is some kind of mouse bear person hybrid eating a watermelon and drinking my favorite brand of soda. There's this one which just has weird bodily proportions to me with this giant ladybug next to it. Like the sheer scale of it is terrifying. And then there's this one that's sitting in a tree, probably about to fall off and break all of the bones in his body and ruin the picnic for everybody. It's shameful. So needless to say, there's a lot going on in this coloring book. But overall, everything seems pretty normal so far. That's because this is a gateway drug for what ColorTok turns into. And actually you can see a little bit of it in this video when she upgraded from the cheap markers to the more fancy ones. But it gets worse.
Things in my coloring setup that simply make sense. Multiple coloring books to choose from when the ADHD hits. A dog of markers off Amazon because I wasn't sure how long this hobby would stick. Acrylic markers for details. Gel pens for highlights, Q-tips for texture effects, and Sharpies to clean up my mistakes. Multiple forms of hydration at all times. Extra lighting to help my old eyes. Mom cozy pillow, Christmas blanket, and lap desk for ultimate comfort.
So you can already see the change here from the first video to this one. We went from cheap peasant markers to this elitist setup. She has not one, not two, but 3 different sets of markers and pens. She has this set of Adega markers, which looks like there's 200 plus markers in there. That's a lot of marking. By the way, I'm pretty sure the Adega markers, or however you pronounce it, I'm pretty sure those are the off-brand version of these markers, but that's neither here nor there. Then on top of all the markers, she has multiple coloring books and an entire setup dedicated to coloring, not to mention the hydration station, which I get because coloring is a grueling process. I would liken it to the work that children did in factories in the early days of the Industrial Revolution. I can totally understand why she'd need a hydro flask and a Diet Coke. She just wants to ensure she's totally properly hydrated. And we're not even at the worst of it yet. But this is where I feel like we're starting to see some of the early to mid stages of ColorTok. In fact, if I was a doctor, this is how I would present it. Your results are in. What are they, doctor? You only have 24 hours to live. Are you serious? No, I'm just kidding with you. I just like to mess around with my patients, you know, lighten the mood because things can get kind of heavy around here sometimes. Anyways, I diagnosed you with early to late stage overconsumptionism coloring.
There's mummy's mortgage. Oh, there's the food that we could have had this month. In it goes. Oh, there's our holiday to Bermuda going right in the cake.
So here we are, closer to the final stages of ColorTok. She has so many markers that I'm almost positive there's a supply chain shortage at Hobby Lobby, which I feel like a secret sign of overconsumptionism is having this little spinny thing. Every time I see somebody with this, it has to do with them having a lot of something. Because we all know when you have a lot of something, you like to spin it. But we just went through the journey of ColorTok from semi-normal to overconsumption. It starts as a nice, normal little hobby where you just color, and then it turns into a symptom of the modern culture, and possibly a deeper issue. The issue being that we created these monsters in a lab. And now that we've looked into the world of ColorTok, let's talk about a few of the potential downsides in it. The first one obviously being overconsumptionism. The citizens of ColorTok buy so many things that feed into this, specifically a ton of markers and a ton of coloring books, which TikTok is no stranger to this behavior. Like I mentioned earlier, it seems almost inevitable that any kind of TikTok trend will turn into overconsumptionism. For example, let's take a look at this next video.
My favorite coloring books with a reason why. The cutest characters. It's mini and leaves room for creativity. There isn't one single page I dislike. I'm excited to color every page. The coziest scenes, they're so beautiful. Crazy illustrations, can color amazing details in bright colors. I love cats, point blank.
Assuming that what we're being shown here is all coloring books, it looks like there's about 20 to 30 of them just on that shelf. And if I'm being quite honest, I don't see a need for that many coloring books, especially because I find it hard to believe that this person has finished most of them, if any of them. And on a side note, I'd also like to point out the almost niche absurdity of some of these coloring books, specifically Stoner Moments, a stoner girl's coloring book, which is a very interesting name. And it looks like she just has a bunch of cigarettes laying around, even on the floor. And then she also has a floor lamp. What is even going on here? I kind of feel like she should stop coloring and just clean her home. Unless floor lamps are some kind of new trend. And if it's a trend, then it's gonna get on TikTok and then it's gonna turn into her having 100 floor lamps. But anyways, let's talk about overconsumptionism. This lady right here is the marker queen, having the entire US supply of markers. She single-handedly accounted for 4.7% of the entire arts and crafts sales just in this TikTok alone. But here's my main contention with overconsumptionism. The constant want to be satisfied, but ultimately never being satisfied. Meaning that overconsumptionism promotes this idea that you just have to keep getting more and more and more until you're finally happy with what you have. But it kind of seems like you don't ever get to that point. The conclusion I draw from that is, that's lame. Lame alert. But to be fair, that's how I get when it comes to garden gnomes. Did you find everything okay, sir? I sure did. Oh wow, you sure like garden gnomes, huh? I guess you could say that. All right, troops, there's been a massive invasion by the enemies on the Western Front. We need to push them back. And also, as a creator, something I've noticed when overconsumptionism enters the chat is that in many cases it dilutes creativity and it turns it into a business. It starts to shift the focus away from what you make to what you own. For example, I don't think owning $200 worth of markers and coloring books is about being creative. I think it's about having visual excess. So all that to say is that overconsumptionism leads to this quest to be satisfied, but ultimately never getting there, and at the same time diluting creativity. Another little grievance I have with ColorTok is that it's a creative paywall. I firmly believe you don't need the best tools to make the best art. In fact, I think the best art usually comes from pure expression of oneself, which that sounds really deep. Kind of deep, I guess. Kind of a philosopher. But what it seems like ColorTok does is it reduces creativity to just buying things. And the next video is a great example of that.
Are you guys having trouble accessing or getting Ohuhu markers at the time? Or maybe just needing that one color from a specific set? We got you. Here at Lola and Friends, you can create your own palette with a minimum of 4 markers with no maximum. Your possibilities are endless. You can pick one from the pastel set, one from the 104 set, one from the midtones. We pull all colors from the 320 Honolulu series.
So gang, did you pick up on it? This person right here is promoting their business, which is fine, but pretty much all she does is talk about buying more markers. How you can buy one from this set, and then one from this set, and then one from this old lady on the street. It doesn't feel like there's any real points being directed towards creativity, but more so just towards buying more. And something that really annoys me about this is that I'm broke. Why do I have to buy so many markers? I don't need all 172 shades of green and all 503 shades of red. Back in my day, we just had one red, and the shade was red. But now you go to the store and there's entire aisles dedicated to just one color. Hello, I'd like to buy a red marker, please. Sure, follow me. Here you are, sir. Let me know if you need help finding anything. Sounds good, thank you.
Oh yeah!
So ColorTok creates this kind of creative paywall, and it makes me sad. Which leads me to my last main issue with ColorTok. It causes an identity crisis. That's pretty intense, huh? What do I mean? Well, I'm glad you asked. To me, it seems like in the world of ColorTok, your identity is tied to how much you own rather than what you create. In fact, when I was looking at ColorTok influencers, it seemed like the more you owned, the more prominent you were. It wasn't even really about what you were creating.
I'm back with another coloring haul. I'm gonna start with the markers first. These are the outline pen. They're like a gel glittery pens. I cannot wait to use these. But let's get into all the coloring books I got. So I ordered Froggy Days because one of y'all commented that I should get this book. I also got Little Spooky. I already have this one, so this one's for y'all. Comfy Days, this food, drink, and sweets.
It all just seems very backwards to me. It's totally removing the creative aspect of coloring and turning it into some kind of materialistic endeavor. Like a pirate searching for booty, a ColorTok influencer searches for markers. And also commits a lot less war crimes in the process. I think. But also, I'm not even saying ColorTok is all bad. And I'm definitely not saying that anyone that's a part of it is also bad. In fact, I think there are many awesome things in ColorTok, but those are just some of the thoughts I had on it. And maybe it's coming from a place of ignorance, and I could totally be wrong in how I think about the points that I'm making. But what do you think? Comment below. Do you have any disagreements with any points I've made or anything you'd like to add? But other than that, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.